In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to play arcade games on PC using the MAME emulator. The first thing that you want to do is to download the emulator, and you can do this by coming to this website, which is mamedev.org. I'll be leaving a link in the description. When you're on here, you want to scroll down until you find the downloads option, and as I'm doing this tutorial on a Windows PC, I'm just going to click on the Windows download. Now when you're on this page, I want you to scroll down, and under the official source code packages, I want you to look at which version of the MAME emulator you're installing. This is because when you're looking for ROM files to download for the MAME emulator, you want to find ROMs which are in this version or a version which is close to it. Next, you want to go ahead and download the emulator. As you can see, there are three options here. Now most of you will be okay downloading this first option, which is the option for Windows computers running on 64-bit. However, if you have an ARM configuration like me, then you want to click on the second setup. But as I said, most of you should be using the first one. Once it's downloaded, you want to go into your downloads folder and you want to drag it over onto your desktop. Next, you want to double click on the setup file. You might get a warning from Windows Defender that the file is unsafe. Since MAME is a known safe software, you can ignore this warning, and you can do that by clicking on more info and then click on run anyway. They're going to ask you where you want to extract the emulator files to, so I'm just going to click on these three dots. I'm going to go into my desktop and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to right click on the folder, click on rename, and then call it MAME. You want to click on that folder and then click on OK, and over here you can click on extract. And as you can see, the MAME emulator is now going to be fully installed onto your computer, and we can go on to the next step, which is getting our ROM files ready. Now, unlike most emulators, MAME ROMs are quite complicated to run, and there's so many different ROM versions available, as well as ROM sets and different BIOS files. My main advice for you is to find a full ROM set. You can also download individual ROM files, as I've done here, of a few games that I want to try playing. Whether you choose a ROM set or if you download individual ROM files, just make sure that the ROMs are in a version which is close to compatible to the version of MAME which you installed in the first step. Now, if the ROM files come in a compressed .zip format, then you can keep them in the compressed files, as the MAME emulator is able to handle compressed files. The next thing that you want to do is open up the folder for the MAME emulator, and in this list of folders, you want to find the ROMs folder. You want to go into the directory where you downloaded your ROM files, and you want to click and drag them into the ROMs folder, which is part of the MAME emulator. Next, you want to go back into the parent folder, and you want to scroll down until you see this application launcher, which is called mame.exe. To launch the emulator, you just want to double click on this file, and as you can see, MAME is going to automatically launch. This is going to be the interface for the MAME emulator, and if you want to find the games which you added into your ROMs folder, you want to click on available in this left menu, and over here you're going to see the list of games which you've added into the emulator. Now, before launching any of these games, we're going to be changing some of the settings. So down here, you want to go into general settings and just make sure that you're double clicking on these options so that they can open. And then you want to go into video options. The first thing that you want to do is to turn off bilinear filtering, as this will add some blurring to the game's graphics which you don't need. Next, you want to go down to the weight vertical sync option, and you want to turn that option on. This will reduce screen tearing while you're playing the game. The third option which you might want to change is the enforce aspect ratio option. What this option does is it allows you to play the games in their native 4:3 aspect ratio, which is the aspect ratio the arcade games were originally played on. However, if you want to play the games in full screen on a modern monitor, then you might want to turn this option off, and it will allow you to play the games in a 16:9 aspect ratio. This will cause some distortion and stretch stretching in the gameplay, so I prefer to keep this option on as I prefer the authentic original gameplay experience. Next, you want to click on return to previous menu, and then you want to go into input devices. If you have a controller connected to your computer and you had it connected before you launched the MAME emulator, then you're going to see your controller listed here. This is the option where you can check if it's properly connected. As I'm going to be playing using my keyboard, I'm going to go back to the previous menu. Next, you want to click on input assignments. On this page here, you can assign the hotkeys which you're going to be using, or you can also map out buttons on your controller which will correspond to pressing the buttons on the arcade system. To do this, you want to go into Player 1 Controls. On this page, you're going to see the shortcuts which you can press on your keyboard so that you can control the game. For example, clicking up on your keyboard is equivalent to pressing up on the original arcade system, and pressing on I is equivalent to pushing the right arcade stick up. If you want to change any of these shortcuts, or if you're using a controller and you want to manually map out what each button does, then you can just double click on it and then press on any button on your keyboard or your controller which you want to map out for the corresponding arcade button. Once you've assigned or learned these shortcuts, you want to scroll all the way down and click on return to previous menu. There are also some additional controls which you should learn which will allow you to launch the games. Down here in this menu, click on other controls. And the shortcuts which you want to learn is one player start and coin 1. These will be the equivalent of pressing start on the arcade machine, as well as putting a coin in, which will allow you to play that game. Once you've learned these buttons, then scroll all the way back down again and click on return to previous menu. Click on return to previous menu again, and finally click on save settings. Now you want to click on return to previous menu again, and you will have closed out of all of the emulator settings. And now there's nothing left to do except try to start playing one of these games. As I said before, many games might not work because the MAME emulator is not very optimized to be user friendly. My only recommendation, if you find a ROM file which doesn't work, is to download a different version of the MAME ROM of that game. But I'm going to be launching a couple of games here, and hopefully some of them should work. To launch a game, you just want to double click on it, and as you can see, the game is going to automatically launch. To exit the game, you just have to click escape on your keyboard and it's going to automatically exit. So let's try some other games here as well. As you can see, this is a game which is not working because it's missing what seems to be a .bin file. So in this case, I would just search for different ROMs and hope that one of them will work. Alright guys, and as you can see, I was able to launch a couple of games successfully. That's it for this tutorial. I really hope that you found it helpful. If you did, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe as well for more content like this. If you had any questions, leave them down in the comment section below and I'll try my best to help you, and I'll see you guys next time.